super functioning right now because they're in a bunch of pieces. We took them apart from our office on campus. We do the IEEE. Get that out of there. So, your own computers at home, I'm sure if they do look like this, if they don't look like this, I'm not too sure. Who's got a PC at home, like just a regular family computer? They got like the Dell ones, the HP ones. If we could jump to the next slide, we're done. So they probably look like that. The one on the right, HP, that's Hewlett Packard, pretty cool company, reputable. The Dells are a good standby in a lot of homes. On the next one. When it comes to a PC, everything starts at the motherboard. So, if you see right here, we got one already out of the case. Without all the mumbo jumbo on top of it, it's the foundation of everything inside of the PC. So, where you're gonna have your RAM, we'll get into that in a second, your CPU, your graphics card, anything else, all branches off the motherboard. That's why they put mother in there, like it's the main piece, very important. And we've got one inside of here. Let me grab a screwdriver so we can bust it open without busting it open.
Oh, wordplay. That was wordplay that make words say you play too much. What?
What? That's good. It's good.
Or it's real. Okay, so I'm gonna move this around. This is Patrick's older PC that he donated to science so that we could take a look inside. So there's our motherboard screwed into the case, which are gonna look different for every single person. You can choose any kind you want. Most of them fit anything else. I'm not gonna go too much in the details in there. If we can go on the next slide. On your motherboard, you have your I/O. I/O stands for input, output. That's where you're gonna connect your USBs. That's where you're gonna connect your displays. You can even connect it to your TV if you got an HDMI cable. Everybody know what an HDMI cable? We sang about them. Hannah had it in her song, HDMI, high definition media interface. What else have we got on the next one? The CPU. Okay, so y'all have heard of CPUs, right? It's a central processing unit. It's like the brain of the computer. So on your motherboard, there's gonna be a specific spot, and usually it's covered by a big aluminum heatsink because they create a lot of heat. They generate a lot of heat when you're doing stuff. So if you're running Minesweeper at 5K, or if you're rendering music, or if you're doing anything really, putting the project together, your CPU is working and it's creating heat. So that has to be dispersed through this aluminum heatsink, and then there's usually a fan attached to it to get that out of your case so it doesn't fry itself. This one over here doesn't have it on it, so you can take a peek at the CPU. It's just a little rectangle in there. There's a generic example of one up there. I believe that's an Intel. When it comes to CPUs, there's two main competitors in the market right now. There's Intel, if y'all heard of them, and then there's AMD. AMD is kind of like the more affordable end of the market, but both of them will do plenty of what you need if you get the right bracket. Next on there. Yeah, so that's a conventional heatsink for an Intel processor. If you were to buy one at a store, it's just a little piece of metal with a fan slapped on it so that as it heats up, it takes the heat off the square portion, the CPU, and then dissipates it out of the case. This one's a little more heavy duty. And speaking of heavy duty, on the next one, you can go all out. This one's only $30 more. It's a good investment, but they get pretty hefty. So like this one, it sticks out like half a foot off your motherboard. You gotta have a big case to house it, but it does really good for if you're overclocking, which is a term they use on CPUs to try to push a little more performance out of it that they didn't mean for it in the factory, from the factory. Next on there. So also on the motherboard are your ports to talk to your other devices. So on an older motherboard like this, instead of having, well, it does have SATA ports. On there, the plastic piece, if you look at the orange area, it's got a little line in the middle and then like an L tablet on it. Those connect to SATA cables, which then go to anything else you want to connect your motherboard to. So that's hard drives to store your stuff, your movies, your songs, your programs. That's CD drives so that you can stick in said music, DVDs and everything. So whenever you put something into your computer, inside the case is probably something a little smaller than this, but it does essentially the same thing. There are just a bunch of rectangular prisms that eat your media, and then they poop out what you want to do with them.
They're really cool.
They identify all the information. Next on there. So that's a closer look at them. There's that one line I was talking about, the little L tablet. This is not exactly a super new standard, but it's newer than what computers were using in about 2002 to the 2000 era. Instead, they were using a larger cable. See, this isn't as cool and sleek as this little one, but they essentially do the same thing. They help your external things like a CD drive or a hard drive talk to your motherboard. So this one was called IDE back in the day. Interface, digital emulation, none of those were right. I don't think I have it on there.
But I love that you made it sound awesome.
Yeah, that's what it.
IDE?
IDE, yeah.
I'll look it up.
So if we can look that in the background. Independent woman, don't need no man. And then the next one, yeah.
Integrated development environment.
Super close. Yeah. So with these, we're looking at hard drives. I mentioned earlier that that's where you're storing all your stuff. Again, another rectangle. They're all rectangles. We like rectangles in the computer world. On the back of it.
Integrated drive electronics.
Driver?
Integrated drive electronics.
Oh. They need to make up their mind on that.
That's what it means. Just, you know.
So with the hard drive, there's when it comes to their differences are going to be like in size. So this one is what, 160 gigabytes. That was a lot back then. Now you got like 1 terabyte drives, which are 1,000 gigabytes, and then they got the multiple terabytes for content creators if you upload stuff to YouTube or if you like to edit Photoshop stuff, put things in Sony Vegas Pro and make videos. But the older standard for them, see, it's the same device. It's a hard drive for storing stuff, but it's got this larger cable, and then this little less elegant, that's the power. So that's what turns it on, and this what talks, this is what sends the information to and from the motherboard. So once it started to get newer, we've got pretty much same device. It's storing stuff, it's telling, it's talking, it's receiving, but through a slicker standard that can even run at higher speeds. So now you can render things a lot quicker than if you were running on Windows 98 or something. You don't have to wait for it to load a super long time. Next on there. Yeah, so this is what the hard drives look like nowadays, which isn't too different than about 10 years ago. That's a 2 terabyte one, it's a little more common. That brand, if you look on top, it's got WD, that's Western Digital. So that's one of the name brands along with Seagate and some other ones. So what else is name brands outside of computers?
What do you mean?
Like just to compare it to, because we got a lot of things in computers where if you buy the parts individually, there's the reputable name brand companies that have been doing it for a while, and then there's the overnight companies that just popped up and you don't know if it's good. So like you got your Louis bag, and then there's the cheap knockoff that they sell at the corner. So they'll both functionally do the same thing, but you don't trust one as much as the other. Sunglasses, yeah. Next on there. On the inside of these hard drives, it's not super important. They got tons of labels on there. You don't have to know what they all do. I don't know what any of them do. What's important is that this little arm moves on this circular spindle in order to read and write information. And that's important because that means it's mechanical. So like, I guess we were talking about mechanical engineering is stuff that deals with something that moves. Civil is stuff that's supposed to not move. This moves, which means that if you knock it, if you drop it, if it gets shocked, it'll mess it up. And that's a bad thing, so they came up with a solution. It wasn't recent, but now it's seeing more popular use, which is an SSD. So it's a much smaller rectangular prism, and it's purely electronic, so it can resist a lot more if you bump it, if you drop your laptop. If it's got a lot of vibrations, you won't lose information, which is good. Next on there, power supplies. Okay, so back to Louis and the other ones. Oh, I don't have one right here, but inside of the case, all of these wires are coming off of the power supply. So this other rectangular prism we got going in there, that takes the power from the wall. So all the electricity, you'll see it in there, there's the power supply, takes the electricity from your wall, and then it distributes it in these different cables to your components on the motherboard. So the largest one goes to the motherboard, and that powers what you need for it to think. The other smaller wires are going to power the individual components. So the CD drive is going to plug one in, the hard drive is going to plug one in. So all of this can talk to each other, but without actual electricity driving it, it's not going to get anywhere. So that's all done by the power supply, which you want to have a name brand power supply. So on the next one is one I've been swearing by so far, is Corsair. Their real name, good brand of power supplies. They've been reputable. 500 watts, it's a little bit overkill if you're just getting a regular system. They go in different wattage, so they got 300 watt power supplies for very basic computers. They got 400 watt power supplies. They got 1,200 watt power supplies for the nerds who got like all of this filled up with stuff and lights and water cooling and everything. But you don't need that. On the next one, it'll show the internals of a power supply. So that same box, if you took off the metal shroud on it, you see all these inductors and transformers. There's some capacitors up there.
Hold on really quick. The inductors, you guys were talking about earlier, the coils of wire. The inductors, that's what an inductor looks like. We talked about it.
That's that. It's all wrapped around in a circle. It does its deal. We got the capacitors. These are some heat sinks, because this is also going to generate heat. When you got a lot of electricity going through, you got to get rid of that heat, because then it'll mess up the components. So that disperses it, and you don't have to know every single thing in here. I don't know every single thing in there, maybe next semester, but you just put it back together, have the box, and it plugs in simply to everything else. You can't really hook anything in wrong, because the plastic components only go in a single way. So that's nice of them to have designed that. Next on there, RAM. Okay, so if you like to get online and with your internet browser, if you're the kind of person that opens up like 32 tabs at once and doesn't close them all down, you're gonna need some RAM. The RAM are over here, and the conventional ones just look like green sticks. They're just green sticks, and they've got little black chips on them. And RAM stands for Random Access Memory. And if you look at the bottom right corner, the non-green ones, they're green underneath all that flashy color. Those are just the ones that they aim at gamers or professionals or stuff. So it looks real cool, and they've got metal on the edge of it, so as it creates heat, it's supposed to also disperse it. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that electronics do not like heat. So I know iPhone has a standard inside of it to where if it gets too hot in your car or something, it'll try to shut itself down, so it doesn't fry its brains. And then you call Apple Sport, and they tell you that you're past your 90 days, and they don't help you.
Yes.
Next on there.
RAM is like your computer's ability to multitask, basically.
It gives it 8 hands at once. Carry all that. You got your Microsoft Office open, then your Tumblr page open, and everything else. So the GPU, we do have one right here.
See what I have different devices after this.
And this is going to concern mostly, I'm going to say mostly gamers, because it's a broad area where we can run video games at higher resolutions than what they have currently on like the Xbox One or the PS4. That's a different debate entirely because of exclusives. But there's also professionals, especially engineers, that when they're running the software that Joe get hands on with SolidWorks yet?
Yes.
Okay. When you're making stuff like that, you're a professional engineer, and you need to make a large-scale project. You got to have a graphics card that can handle all of those elements going on at the same time, and then all of it rendering into a project so you can deliver to whoever else. So NVIDIA makes some, like I said, when we were doing CPUs, there's Intel and AMD. Those are two big dogs in CPUs. With GPUs, graphics for video games or professional rendering, we have NVIDIA in the game, and then AMD again. So it says ATI, but they were eaten up by AMD. So it's red and green, AMD, NVIDIA. Yeah, so that's that with that. Next on there. On them, those first two that we saw are the regular ones you can get straight from the vendors. These look a little different, but they're the same thing on the inside. So we mentioned on the first project that we saw, printed circuit boards, PCBs, and that's the green portion. That's what everything's sitting on, all the components, and it's got all the traces on there that were designed by some other engineer as to make it work. These have just about the same thing behind all this plastic and all these fans, which is, again, just to get rid of all the heat. But the vendors that they give it to, MSI, Gigabyte, to name a few, they do with it what they want, overclock it a little, and then they give it out to the market. So it's all preference. It's all preference. Like when you go and you get a car, It's got 4 wheels, it's got an engine, but some people like Chevy, some people like Honda. Just about the same thing in the PC world. Yeah, so this one was a good example because this person's using it for some extreme gaming. They have 3 monitors going off of one single system. So usually you play a video game, you've got one screen, right? This guy's got it extended so you can feel a little more immersed in it. And in order to do something like that, you need a strong graphics card. So this is what I was talking about. This rectangle here sticks out of the motherboard and does what you need it to do. On the side of it, it has connectors to plug into either your monitor or your TV screen. They got HDMIs for it, so you can game it 42-inch, whatever. On the next one, the case itself, I mentioned that the cases are all going to look different. This one's just specific to this one. The regular PCs at home have just a real modest plastic housing. This one's designed like a V8 engine because this person just wanted to go all out. They hate their paycheck. They have to get rid of it. They did this. But it's still a computer. Inside of there, you got a motherboard. All this extra flair, those are fans just to get rid of some heat. I'm sure there's a power button somewhere, but it's just, you know, they got creative. On the next one, I think is about the same thing. Yeah, so this does the same thing as a regular Dell that you can get for $300 at the store. But somebody designed this themselves. They bought a case, they bought a motherboard, they bought a power supply and some fans. And so it does the same thing at a higher quality. So it does it faster, it does it cooler. It looks awesome when people go to their house. It's impressive. It makes you look smart even though it's just plugging things in. So I think that's part of my message is that it's not impossible. It's really, really not impossible to get hands-on with a PC yourself. So this is a website that I like to use when looking for individual components. And it sounded like a lot of things, but it's really just like 8 pieces that you put together. If we go to the next one, well, the name of the website is PC Part Picker. And when you go to it, it lists like parts all over the internet from newwave.com, that's one place that people buy computer parts. From Amazon, they got the Prime 2-day shipping. They'll put the prices on there and they'll show you the lowest one so you don't get ripped off. Next one. These are the 8 main components I was talking about. There's some extra stuff at the bottom. You don't even need an optical drive nowadays. That's the CD burner. You can do everything through flash drive. CPU you need, or else the computer can't think. The cooler usually comes with it. If you want to overclock, which is, you know, give it some more power, make it run hotter, try to get a little extra performance, you should throw $30 at that. Motherboard, can't do anything without a motherboard in there because there's nothing attached to. The memory, you gotta have some RAM in there so you can multitask. Storage, get yourself a terabyte hard drive, the other rectangular prism. Any size hard drive will do, but you gotta have at least like 60 gigs nowadays to run Windows 7, which is the operating system, and throw that in there. The video card, totally optional. Some of the CPUs will do video that you need, so you can get online, you can do projects, you can do schoolwork, you can do Microsoft. But this is going to be for people that want to render music or render videos or play video games. The case, you can get any case. They range from like $20 to $120, depending on how flashy you want it. And a power supply, give it some power. So you look at those few things, and if you ever had it in mind, oh, I want to check this out, see what it's like, you can get on YouTube, and that's what I did. I just learned about computers last year by watching YouTube. I think I put a Facebook status up not too long ago that was, trust me, I saw a YouTube video on it. And that's pretty much what this is. What's going on, Cole?
What was the optical drive for?
The optical drive is mainly used for installing the operating system. So when you get a brand new computer, it doesn't have Windows on it. It doesn't have Mac on it. It doesn't have Linux on it. So the most common way to put Windows on a computer is to put the CD in it. But nowadays they've got it available on the flash drive instead, so you can take the CD drive out of the equation altogether. So, if anybody's got an iMac at home, it's a little less compatible with getting your hands in there and tinkering with it. Not impossible, but it's much harder. So on the next slide, I show that you can take some suction cups, go on to the next one, and bring up that glass screen. It comes apart, but you need suction cups. I don't know where you buy suction cups. I guess you just Amazon Prime that. And then you'll see it starting to reveal itself behind that glass, and then there's a couple of screws.
Do not do this at home without your parents' permission.
Don't do this at all. I know how to do this, and I don't trust it. So it's scary. But I just want to let you know that this is another big part of the computer community is Apple. So this is why sometimes a lot of uber nerds in computers enjoy being able to tinker with their stuff, because Apple gives a product that's already, but I mean, it was a pain in the butt to get in there, so you kind of just want to leave it alone in the Apple market. And I mean, it functions perfectly fine as it is. On the next one, another big part of computers is laptops. Can I upgrade my laptop? Well, laptop's a little more set into as soon as you buy it. So like once you buy it, that's pretty much what you got. You can't open it up and start switching things out as easily. I guess it's possible, but not as easily. On the next one, so if you flip it over, you take out the battery, there should be like some plastic parts where you can change out the RAM, which are smaller, they're not as long. The hard drive, get yourself some more space, have some more songs and movies. There's a Wi-Fi dongle, you don't really gotta mess with that. But beyond that, it's pretty much a closed system. You gotta take what you got. Next one, if you did take it apart, you've got a motherboard, but it's all soldered together. Do y'all know what solder is yet? It's kind of like a tiny welding. It's all soldered together, so you need a soldering iron to take it apart, and then even at that, there's not really proprietary parts to put something better in, so you're better off just leaving it the way it is. My laptop I've had since 2011, and yeah, I've just had to have a laptop since 2011. Next one. So if you're thinking about rendering stuff, if you're thinking about doing the stuff you want to do on a desktop in a more mobile fashion, you have to buy it that way, which these are in about the range of $1,500 to $2,000. Yeah, so that's got a video game on it, Watch Dogs. If you want to do something that's real demanding like that, that's what you would do. On the next one. And that's it. This is just a really fancy computer. Thank you for listening.